Laura Gonzalez, welcome to the Mapper Forward podcast.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and have a chat with you. I never do podcasts on Saturday mornings, but this was like a really great way to I'm going to have a chat with someone that I've never actually met in real life because she's in another country, and we're just going to have a nice chat about some really badass shit that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You are the owner, the founder. Do you like to say owner or founder?
Well, neither. I mean,
What do you
I've
say?
been, I don't know, I'm just like, it's my project and it's like a thing that I'm doing. But when I hear like founder, I feel like, like, I don't know, a founder of McDonald's or something like that.
Lady, you've got to own it. So let me set let me tell people who are listening exactly what we're talking about. Laura is the founder of, why don't you introduce it?
Strong Women of Coffee.
There you go. So why don't you say it? I'm the founder of Strong Women of Coffee.
Yeah, well, the creator of the account, Strong Women of Coffee. That will be.
Woman, you've got to own it. I'm the creator of Strong Women of Coffee. Yes. There are a lot of these kinds of organizations that are popping up, or accounts that are popping up over social media. And I've resisted the urge to talk with anyone about this kind of topic. Not that I haven't wanted to, I really have wanted to. It's just that with a lot of the people that I've spoken to, their long-term vision hasn't been clear, or they're clear about it. They just have no fucking idea how they're going to execute. And I thought that bringing them on the podcast would be more detrimental than it would be helpful to what they were doing. And the thing I loved about you was that you don't really yet know or have a clear vision of where you want Strong Women of Coffee to necessarily go, but you have a really good understanding and intention behind what the problem is. And rather than being really staunch on this is what we're going to achieve, you're like, well, we need to listen more. We need to this is going to be something that's about listening to people and then seeing what the community needs. Is that a fair summary of what Strong Women of Coffee is, how you're approaching it?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do is just to give a voice to the females in the community, and also just to like approach a little bit of on the human side of it, not so much on, because we're all humans, we all like need to identify with each other, and somebody might be going through something and you're thinking you're the only one who's going through that, and like feeling, oh, I feel like I'm such a failure, but maybe you're not the only one, and you don't have to feel like you're the only one going through that. So there's other women in the coffee industry that feel that way. And I also wanted people who's not in the coffee industry to have a clear image of the females that are in the coffee industry. We're not that pretty, beautiful face. We're all beautiful, of course, but
look at yourself, woman. Look at yourself. Of course you are.
But I hear what you're saying. Coffee, like, looking pretty and modeling. We're smart, and we are more than that, and we are more than our bodies, and we are fighters, and we're warriors, and we are fighting to have better opportunities and everything. So I really wanted to showcase, like, the struggle that we are going, or like keep it very positive and just like empowerment, stories or things that the women share with me. So, yeah.
So, which is awesome. There's something I want to talk about there, because you hear a lot of, I'm being very careful with my words. Well, you hear a lot of people say things like that. You know, we want to be all about empowerment and we want to keep it positive, et cetera, et cetera. And that's great, except it's not that way. It's not positive right now. It's not about empowerment right now. We're trying to make it about that. We're trying to find a level of equality that works without it going in a bunch of directions that aren't helpful. What do you think the struggles are that women face in coffee today?
I'm still trying to find out that as well. I mean, we can go around like a lot of topics, right? Like sexual harassment in the bar with the baristas that you also talked about in other of your podcasts. You don't hear the same comments from a customer to a female barista than to a male barista.
Right.
One of the females that I interview, and it's the quote that I posted for her on her feature is like, I have customers asking me a lot of like private things about my life, like, oh, you must be the guy in your life so happy making cappuccinos every morning. And she never hears that about like a guy, you know? And another roaster telling me, oh, this guy was like questioning me if I knew enough about roasting. When he was talking to this other guy, he wasn't like questioning about. So I think one of the biggest, so, it's a different, but it's different, but same. So coming from a customer, coming from people in the same industry, like as they're going in personal life, telling her why did they assume or that she wants to talk about her partner, and why is the customer assuming it's a guy and she's working, she doesn't have to answer to that. And the customer is never asking that question to a guy.
Well, I think
right?
a lot of that's, and I hear you, I absolutely get where you're coming from. I think in those situations, though, I think the customer's flirting with her and he doesn't know how to do it with any kind of, like, he's just a shitty flirter. He's trying to, first of all, figure out if she has a boyfriend, and then he's trying to throw in a little bit of sexual innuendo there because, he's fantasizing about being the person that she makes a cappuccino for. I don't know that. And this is where I think, well, I know that I am very careful in my own life about making sure that I assess each of the situations that they genuinely are sexism, they genuinely are harassment, not just dudes being stupid or unintelligent or bad flirters or flirting at all, like, and knowing what I want to come back to that with. Like, if I remember, the thing I used to get asked at the coffee machine a lot, I can't believe I'm admitting this on the podcast. I don't know why, but I just thought I shouldn't say this, but I will. I used to get not just men and women come up to me at the coffee machine and ask me to do threesomes with them all the time. The time. My husband was so impressed. Now my ex-husband was so impressed every time I'd come home and be like, I don't get it. I don't understand what it is that about me that says, come ask me for a threesome. I used to get 1 or 2 a week people at the coffee machine at this specific, very, very busy cafe in Sydney. And people, like men and women, would come and say, oh, would you join my husband and I? Would you join my wife and I? And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, I'm not into that. I was married and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't something that I just found it strange that people just felt it was okay to come up to me and ask me that. And I part of it was I was embarrassed about it because I didn't know what to say back. But I would go home and tell my husband, he's like, that's really flattering. You should say yes, babe, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, I'm offended. that I'm there doing a serious job. I'm really passionate about my job, and people are asking me if I'll join them for a threesome. I'm not standing there soliciting myself. He's like, you're seeing this whole fucking thing wrong. He's like, these people are connecting with you and they're inviting you into a very intimate situation. Why are you offended by that? I'm going to go tell all my mates that this is what happens to my wife. But the thing is, the big problem there wasn't that it was happening or not happening. The big thing is that I didn't know how to manage the situation. You know what I mean? I didn't, and it was happening so regularly that I should have identified what line do they think it's okay to cross? Like, what am I putting out there that lets people, and I'm a super friendly barista. I'm very engaging with my customers, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's been a few years. I've got to tell you, I miss it. I miss that connection so much. It's like, especially
you miss the invitation.
No, not at all. I'm too busy to even think about entertaining those kinds of invitations now. But it's that 30 seconds every day with the same person, and I kind of realized that these people they're not aware of my boundaries, and I'm not setting them clearly enough. And to get asked to join a threesome like once or twice a week from different people, clearly everybody in that area is having way too much fun if that many people are asking me to join them for threesomes. But I also wonder what it was that made it okay for them to cross that boundary and say something like that. And it was very sweet the way that they would do it. They'd lean in between the hopper, the grinder and the machine, just a little tiny cubby just at the bottom of the hopper. And they'd be like, hey, Lee, my husband and I were wondering if you're into threesomes. What are you supposed to do when somebody does that and you're in the middle of steaming milk? And you just think, all right, I've got to start preparing myself for a decent answer to this. That doesn't make them feel uncomfortable, because they're gonna fuck off and never come back if you embarrass them. But it's still inappropriate for them to say that to me.
Yeah, of course. And again, it's just like a matter of what are they thinking that they think it's okay to come and ask that questions about your personal life,
right?
Because it's work, is your job, right? So you don't go to, well, maybe people go to the Apple store and start asking those kind of questions to the people who's working there.
Me these days.
Yeah,
someone's got some nerd fetish. They're like, oh, I want to have a threesome with a guy from the Apple store. Ooh. Hey, America has taught me that I know very little about what people will do.
But I think that's one of our that's part of one of the problems that females are facing in our industry, and just get questioned about the knowledge that they have a lot. And I don't think it's only in our industry. I think it's in every industry. We see it all the time in politics, technology, all the IT people and everything, engineers. So yeah, I think mostly it's questioning our knowledge. I think and we question our knowledge as well. So that doesn't make it really easy. So.
There's, there's my idea is that, actually, let me ask you, what do you think the solution is for this situation?
Oh, I don't actually know. And I'm still actually also trying to find out why, because you can go and do all these pep talks and talk to everybody and say don't question yourself. You know a lot of your thing, and you know about roasting, you know about coffee, you know about barista, you know about green coffee. But if we don't believe it ourselves, then it doesn't matter how many people tell us how great we are if we don't believe it ourselves, or if we don't believe the knowledge that we have, then it's not going to work. So I don't know where it comes from, if it's from society, if it's from things that happened to us in the past, or I don't know. And I don't really know what the solution is. Just believing in ourselves, I guess.
If only it was that easy, right?
Exactly.
It's like this. I have this problem with people who are like rah positive. Just got to be positive. Everything's going to be fine. No, it's not going to be fucking fine. No. Being positive is going to fix jack shit. You've got to like believe in yourself, yes, but you've got to go the fuck out there and do it. You've got to take action.
Definitely.
You've got to work hard, and not just work hard as in like show up to work and do the hard work. You've got to work hard on yourself. You've got to work hard on assertiveness, which is the silver bullet. I think that's the solution to all of this. We need to empower everybody in our industry with assertiveness. And we're working on getting workshops for that so that people can attend virtually and in person. Dr. Jamie Berry is going to be leading those. And the reason that assertiveness is going to be so important is because it teaches us about boundaries, right? It teaches us about how to set boundaries. We deserve boundaries as women and as men. It helps us establish boundaries so that people don't walk over them, and we learn how to teach consequences of stepping over those boundaries. I think believing in yourself is not just something you could be like, oh, okay, so from this moment on, I'm going to believe in myself.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. It's not something that you wake up and it's like, oh, everything is okay. I'm a great person. It's something that it needs to do with a lot of work on like each person, internally. And
go ahead.
It's so hard. Yeah.
The hardest part about it, someone who I think is just such a fucking badass in our industry is Andrea Allen from Onyx Coffee Lab. And I know competition is something that you're passionate about, something that you would, it's something you're passionate about for women to have the opportunity to do. And you may want to compete one day, you were telling me. And this is where I think someone like Andrea is the absolute epitome of learning how to believe in yourself. Andrea is quite shy and reserved and doesn't talk a lot. She's been on this podcast and spoke for a whole 2 hours, which was awesome. But her big concern is not that women don't compete. She's like, women do compete. They just never return. Very rarely do women come back and compete a second time if they don't win. And this is where someone like her, who has come back again and again and again, she's competed twice while pregnant. It's those kinds of things that I feel will help women in our industry start to believe in themselves.
Yeah, I think so. But again, I mean, it's, like kind of an alcoholic or something. If you don't start making the change yourself, and if you don't believe or do the work on yourself, then nothing's going to happen. It doesn't matter how many people you have behind you, then that's not going to happen. I'm sure she pushes herself to compete every time. And that's something that she wants to do. But you said they don't return. So how many other women they just competed once and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it again. I failed. When you see the confidence in men and they're like, oh no, next year I'm going to do better and I'm going to do better. So why is that? I'm just like trying to, because I don't know, right? I'm trying to figure it out. Why is that so many men like return to compete and not women? And how this year it was very good in the US. There was a lot of female competitors. So I think it's changing. I'm hoping next competition season it's going to be the same.
Something that's important there, Laura, is that we have to look at evolutionary conditioning and things like that. And this is where,
Oh, yeah.
Men are evolutionarily conditioned towards competition and towards aggression and towards those kinds of behaviors. Women are evolutionarily conditioned towards compassion and empathy. And I think it's not that women can't compete. It's not that they're going to be terrible at competing. It's that our society hasn't given women en masse the skills or the encouragement to be assertive enough to compete, or to consider the fact that just because more men compete, it doesn't mean that they're not also throwing up in the bathroom before they compete. We're assuming that men find competition easy.
That's true.
And, a woman placed first and second. Andrea Allen was second in the USBC this year. It's one of those situations where we're in a transitionary phase right now, which is very exciting. But at the same time, I think the way that we break those stereotypes is not just by saying we've got to empower women, right? We've got to do some of the things that you and I've spoken about before that you hope to help women with in their quest to compete. Teach them. You were talking about, is it Glitter Cat?
Yeah. So they are a barista bootcamp, and I'm very inspired by the work that T-Ben is doing. And it's a barista bootcamp for minorities, like people from the LGBT community, people of color, women, all the minorities that are underrepresented in competitions. I'm really inspired by it and everything, and that's something that I'm working to do here in Canada as well. My thing, it's not only going to be supportive of like minorities and LGBT community and everything. It's gonna be for everybody.
I love
and
that.
not only for women. It's gonna be, because we had this conversation also before. It's gonna be also like, it doesn't mean that a guy doesn't have that fear of that stage, fear of that maybe that guy wants also to compete and he doesn't know where to start. So
congratulations. That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. The idea of, because I'm so against this idea of let's use exclusivity to be inclusive. It doesn't work.
So no, it doesn't work. And I mean, here in Canada, it's, we have a lot of diversity and everything. Mm-hmm. Of course, I would love to see like more Mexicans in the community, but so far I think we are only like 2 or 3 in whole Canada in the
I think there's that
community.
Many Mexicans in all of Australia. One of my best friends is one of them. There's not a lot of Mexicans in Australia, let alone in the Australian coffee industry.
Yeah, so we also, we have but we are diverse. But still, I think we need more support towards women and like LGBTQ communities and all that. So I think everybody deserves to have that opportunity, not just certain groups.
So right? Who do you think are the certain groups that have the opportunity? So you're saying that everybody deserves to have the opportunity, not just certain groups. Who are the certain groups that you think have the opportunity, and who are the certain groups that you think don't have the opportunities?
Well, here in Canada, you always see like the same companies, like staff members competing, which is great. That means that they support their staff. Mm-hmm. And they, they believe in them, to supportive enough to compete, to pay for their competition, or maybe not even pay, but to be behind them and coach them and everything. But you don't see like an independent person, just a regular barista that it's there competing by its own like money and everything. You don't really see that. I mean, this year it was probably one or two competitors in different categories. Coffee and good spirits. My friend Stacy Linden, she was competing in coffee and good spirits, and she was an independent. So, but you don't see that a lot. You see like roasters supporting their own competitors, and other coffee companies supporting their own competitors, which is great. But what about the little, the baristas that work in this cafe and they're also passionate about coffee, but the cafe owner doesn't really understand what competitions are. Like they just really care about the money. That doesn't mean that the barista also cares only about like making money. The barista is also passionate about coffee and making great drinks and competing probably.
See, this is where I
So
think assertiveness could become a really great skill that could help shift the dynamic of that situation. If a barista working for an independent cafe could put a case together and be assertive enough to go to their boss and say, okay, so I've crunched some numbers. This is how much money I need to compete. This is the value that it could bring to the cafe if you can support me. And this could be a win-win for both of us. We could create some events around it. We could get some more attention for the cafe. Those are the kinds of things that we
come out of
need.
competition.
Yeah, it's learning that process. Excuse me. And perhaps that wasn't the excuse me. Perhaps that wasn't the intended consequence of coffee competitions, but I think that it's a really great skill that is an unintended consequence, teaches people to be assertive and to learn how to negotiate sponsorship, how to talk to their bosses. There's nothing that says, and nor should it, in my opinion, and I'm happy for you to disagree with me and help me understand your perspective on this. There's nothing that says that everyone has to be equal in the way that they get to competition. Everybody should have the opportunity to compete. And I don't think anybody is saying you don't have the opportunity to compete, but it's a competition. And so if you want to have the best chance at competition, you've got to get creative. You've got to, why not go and find sponsorship from somewhere that you don't work?
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And there's also programs from like, I think a Kaya scale, like if you're a competitor and want to like, they will support you with equipment and stuff like that. I know there's like a few companies that support you. But also like going a little bit back to your assertiveness of like, just go to your boss and everything. I completely agree, but also I think sometimes bosses or managers or they also need to kind of question themselves, why is my staff not interested in it, or why is my staff not coming and ask for it? Do I look friendly enough, or like do I look open enough for my staff to come and talk to me? And
This is where I will challenge that. Why do they have to?
well, you want your staff to feel comfortable enough to come to you and ask for things with assertiveness, right?
Well, how will you know that you're not if they're not telling you
If
that?
they're not, that's, well, you need to like, it's when you're hiring people at your cafe. It's, well, I'm only getting like, I don't know, only girls, I don't know, Mexican girls. You're getting only Mexican resumes. What about, Asian girls?
Right.
Why they're not coming? Does my cafe doesn't look like friendly enough for that culture to come and ask me for a job? Or why is that?
That's
So
a really
I
great
think
point.
so I think also, like, if somebody, obviously they won't know, they don't read minds that their baristas wants to compete. But I also think they also, I think it's like half and half. Like, why is this not happening? Why they're not asking? But also, why is the barista not asking? Because the manager doesn't read minds, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
So is what I like that point. So what you're saying is that there needs to be more openness from the perspective of employers to start encouraging their staff to compete rather than just waiting for their staff to say, "Hey, I want to compete."
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Hey
think
guys, is anybody like interested in competing? I will be willing to help. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's something somebody was thinking about it. Like, oh yeah, me, I wanted to compete, but I didn't know, like, how do I do it? How do I think? I mean, it's 50-50, I think.
I think that that's a really interesting perspective because and you've opened my mind up a little bit there because I wouldn't my understanding and the way that I see competition is if somebody's going to have a chance at succeeding in competition, they're going to have to show that competitive spirit from the beginning. If I have an employee and they need me to encourage them to compete, they're probably not going to have the killer spirit that's needed to win. But I'm also somebody who's like, I'm not a competitive person. I don't understand the behavior. I definitely wish that I did a little bit more. I'd probably be much better at a few things than I currently am. But also, if I was to do something like that, I would have to win. Like, I just don't see the point in doing something if you're not going to do it properly. And so my thinking around that has been up until this moment, people who want to compete should already be in their convictions enough that they are happy to put their hand up and make things happen for themselves. Do you see what I'm saying there?
Yeah, of course. Like, you see a competitor being a competitive person and say, like, if I'm going to compete, I'm going to win. But, not maybe not everybody is like that.
I hear you. Definitely, I hear you. What do you think the likelihood of someone winning is if they're not prepared to kind of stand up and say, "Hey, I want to compete. I need some help"? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think I know the answer to that either. I mean, I don't think somebody's gonna win in their first competition, because obviously the first competition. I mean, I've never competed.
Do you want
I
to
don't.
compete?
I do want to compete in the future. Barista never. That's something I could never do. I would like to compete in coffee and good spirits. Coffee and
Why?
alcohol. Coffee and
That's the
alcohol.
reason.
There's nothing better.
Okay, fair enough.
No, well, I enjoy both, so
And
why
that's
not?
awesome. Like, if I think you should compete in something that you're passionate about. What's stopping you from competing so far?
Well, here in Canada, Coffee and Good Spirits is fairly new. This year was only the second time they did it. I wanted to compete this year, but because of time and, again, I didn't really know where to start or anything, who to ask for help, or anything. So, I mean, I know who to ask for help. But they also, people is busy. They also have their own things. So I just like
There's
kind
that
of,
assertiveness thing again.
yeah. So I just kind of lost
You need
track
a
of the
mentor.
time, the deadline. And yeah, I know. I have one, and she's awesome. And she's like, I'll help you and everything. But,
Get a
sometimes it's
few. You don't
also,
need to have just one mentor. You can have
Oh
someone,
no.
get a couple of mentors, so that if you feel like one of them's busy, you can go and speak to the other one.
Yeah, I know. And my boyfriend, he also did like a bartender course like a few years ago. So we even like, oh, you have to do this with your signature drink. Let's do this, let's do that. And I was like, yeah. And then like something else happened. And like, I just lost the
Right.
timeline and everything. So again, there's the assertiveness. I should have been more focused and, just prepare
Boundary.
myself.
Exactly. I mean, and
Yeah.
this is, I think, one of those situations, and my perspective before was about, people should, if you want to compete, speaking up to your boss and saying, hey, listen, I want to compete. I can't afford it. This is what I think it's going to cost me. Can you help me sort this out? And I think a boss sees that kind of passion and is like, all right, so let's say they're going to need $10,000 to compete. I don't have $10,000 as a boss, but we can run some events. We can try and raise the money. It's going to work well for the cafe. Like, what ideas do you have? I'm a very solutions driven person. And so if someone who's working for me comes and says to me, I got this problem, my direction to them is come to me with a solution. It doesn't have to be thought out the whole way. Just come to me with a problem and half a solution and we can figure it out. If it's about your career, it's about, a problem at work, whatever. But don't come to me with just a problem unless it's an emergency. And we make a fucking bottled beverage. There is no such thing as an emergency. Like, let's be real, people. Unless and if there is a real emergency, you should be calling the paramedics or the police, or the fire department, not me,
Yeah.
But if you
That's also, you're assuming that the manager of the cafe owner is going to say yes. Why if they say, oh, yes, I help you, and then you never get that help?
No, but if you're going to somebody and saying, listen, this is what I want to do. This is how much it's going to cost. I would like for, Map It Forward Cafe to be a sponsor for this. I want to represent this cafe. And you go in prepared, obviously. This is what I think my chance of winning is, but it doesn't really matter because these are the ways in which I'm going to represent this brand, promote this brand, talk about this brand. I need this much money, and I don't expect that the business is going to be able to front that money, but can we come up with some ways that we could raise the money together? And let me tell you, when an employer sees someone with that much passion and you've made a case how it's going to benefit the business as much as it's going to benefit you, that employer is not going to ignore you. And if they do, you need to find a new employer. That person is not supportive. You've made a really great case there, right? You've gone and showed them that it's not just about you as a competitor, it's about you and them.
Yeah, of course.
And so if you can go in and do that, and you're not saying to them, like, I'm asking you for $10,000. What you're saying is, listen, dude, you're a business owner. Dude is gender neutral there, right? You're a business owner. You clearly know something about raising money, right? I am wondering if you can help me figure out what we can do together to raise the money that's needed. This is when you're competing against companies that are fronting full accommodation, full airfares, full everything. This is the only way you're going to find a way in as a competitor.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And again, I applaud the companies who fully support their competitors and, their staff. And the ones who also like not fully, but also are supportive of people who wants to compete. either like, oh yeah, let me help you get the coffee, or let me help you with, I don't know, a scale or whatever. It's not like cheap, all the fancy coffee equipment.
No,
But
but
yeah, I think,
go
yeah, go
ahead,
ahead.
please. It.
It's,
I love when that happens.
yeah,
Please go
you
ahead.
go ahead. I just forgot what I was going to
Okay.
say.
So here's the thing, right? Competition is meant to teach you many, many things.
Yeah.
Other than just how to create a signature drink. The point of competition is to teach you how to network, how to build relationships. It's to teach you these business type skills, how to get sponsorship. And you'll notice that the more people compete, the more likely they are to do better because they've learnt these things every time they go through them. So, we had a situation where here in San Diego, I can't remember who it was, I think got to regionals or got to finals or something for Brewers Cup. I should know this better. But what ended up happening was that she couldn't afford anything. She couldn't afford to pretty much pay for anything. And so what she did, she went to somebody and said, this is the list of everything that I need. And so they went out into the community through social media and said, this is the list of all the stuff that she needs to compete. She needs a space to practice in with this particular machine or this particular equipment. She needs 3 people who can be judges on this date. She needs a place to stay in, I can't remember where it was. She needs air tickets for this much. All of the things were listed in there. And the community stepped up and said, well, I can definitely give you a space. And this other person says, well, I've got this equipment and she's welcome to come in and use it whenever we're closed. Other people were like, I know, excuse me, I know someone that can give her a place to stay where she's competing. These are innovative ways that can help people compete to the standard that they need to compete without having a huge budget and hopefully get to the places that they're going to be, particularly in the beginning stages of their competition career. These things teach you so many different skills. How lovely it is to be a part of a community that cares.
Yeah, of course. And that's the beauty of the coffee community, right? Like there's so many people willing to help you in so many ways, that actually, I think that's important for what I'm trying to do. It will be like an education program for whoever wants to compete. I'll give you the tools to compete, the preparation, and then it's up to the person if they want to use it or not, right? Yes, I will go and I will find my way to go and use these skills to compete.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is as well encouragement, right? People just need someone that's going to say, like, I wonder if like you were saying, a lot of people don't know how to get started, and that's what stops them. Is I don't know where the fuck to start. With other people, they're like, oh, I'm going to figure this out. I'm just going to get on the internet. I'm going to look at forums. I'm going to figure out how other people got started. A lot of people live in out the back of bumfuck little towns where they don't know who, they don't know anyone who's ever competed before. They don't even know how they're going to get to a competition.
Yeah. And also just like there's so many things or tips that you can get from people who are actually already competed, I myself, like what you said, you just go on the internet and, I went on the internet, I downloaded the freaking rule book for coughing with spirits and I started reading and I'm like, what does this even mean? Like, huh? What? So I needed someone to actually explain me those rules. Because yeah, they are there, they're handy, everybody can read them, but then who can explain me what I don't understand?
Yep.
So
And this is where we do start to see the divide between certain people that have an advantage and certain people that don't. A clear example is that when James Hoffman was on the podcast, he was telling me that so when he competed for World Barista Champ and won, something that he did was that he took everything off the bench that he was preparing and put it underneath the bench. And he had contacted them beforehand and said to them, is there a rule that says that I have to use the top of the bench or something like that? He contacted the people who do the rules for that particular year, excuse me, and got clarification on it, right? The simple act of knowing that you can do that and being assertive enough to do that, that's something that people who don't have the confidence or the privilege, that is a sense of privilege. I'm only just learning in my life this thing that I'm calling the power of fuck you. Yeah. So it's the power of being able to step into what I deserve. All of us deserve everything. It's whether we can actually give it to ourselves or not, right? And so if we deserve all the greatness that we choose to privilege ourselves with through our own hard work and commitment. There are definitely things that get in our way. I've just decided that all the things that I was using as an excuse to prevent me from getting the things that I deserve, I'm no longer using them as excuses. What I'm saying to those things is fuck you, and I'm just moving forward with it. It's a difficult one to, I'm still finding my momentum with it, but it's starting to work for me in the sense that, all right, so Lee, you are somebody who typically doesn't want to bother people and doesn't really ever want to ask for help, right? No, fuck you. You deserve the help that you need because you're not someone who's lazy. You're not someone who doesn't try for yourself. Still do all the things and try for yourself, but you can say to somebody, hey, could you help explain to me what I need to do to make this, and this work? That is me stepping into a privilege that I've never had before. I've never afforded myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of us, like, good for you. That's great. But I think a lot of us are still in that stage that, oh no, why am I going to ask for help? And, you know,
absolutely.
And it's one of those changes that you don't just wake up and it's like,
exactly.
Oh, fuck you all. No.
Yeah.
It's something that it needs work.
But something on that, what I'm hearing a lot of at the moment when people are talking about this idea of privilege and gender inequality and, race equality and all of that kind of stuff, what I'm hearing is people believe that they deserve to have everything that they want, but aren't prepared to do the work to give it to them. So, for example, people just believe that they deserve the equal opportunity to compete at the same level as what everybody else is competing, right? It's expensive. It's hard to get there. It's all of these things, right, that are difficult to get. And there are people that are out there saying, well, everybody should start at an equal playing field. The fact that you get to compete the same as everybody else gets to compete, that's the equal playing field. The rest is what's going to sort the winners from the not winners.
Of course, and that has to do with the person and the passion that that person has about it, and how passionate and also how talented that person is. Why not? So yeah, but I do think everybody should have the same tools.
So tell me what you mean
And
by
then
that.
it's up to like that. Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, when you say they should have the same tools, I don't agree. I don't
Okay.
agree with that statement. So, but I should probably figure out, like, understand what you mean by what you define tools to be.
Well, the understanding of the rules, probably how to like a good quality coffee, like a competition coffee. Maybe, I don't know, to know how to put together their speech, because some people go and not knowing, obviously, if it's their first competition or even maybe probably second, I don't know. They don't know how to like present a speech. They don't have like enough of a presence. So I think everybody should be able to at least have those tips and a little bit of coaching in that area, at least for the rules. I know that if as everything, if you know the rules, then you will be fine. So
How could
I
they help
think
you?
those are
Like, if somebody from the different competitions that you're talking about happens to listen to this podcast, what do you think they could do that would make the rules easier for someone that has English as a second language, or perhaps has a learning disability, or how do you think they could make this better for everybody and make it more equal?
I'm pretty sure they have the rules in different languages. I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure. But I mean, sometimes when you read them, it's like, oh, this drink, it's like, or taste is going to be this many points, and this other drink is going to be less, or, it's a matter of scoring. Like it might not be clear, even if your first language is English. So until somebody sits down with you and tells you, if you get more points in tasting and if you get less points in presentation, then you're going to be fine as long as you have good high scoring in tasting the drink. So you need to
That's a
understand
coach, right?
Exactly.
That's what your coach should do. So is what you're saying that you believe everyone should have equal access to a coach for competition?
I think so. That will be, well, everyone will be the dream, right? There's somebody who really don't know or are like smart enough to figure out by themselves.
Don't you think that that's part of the skill that competition is trying to teach people, of how to build relationships?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's also the thing, right, about coffee community. If you have a question, like we were saying, you can just go and ask for help and somebody will help you for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the competition. So I don't think the competition starts when they say, start my time. I think the competition starts for you the moment that you decide I'm going to compete, right? And perhaps a couple of years before that, when you've started, and this is, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. This is this workshop that we've got coming up called Barista Beyond Mapping a Successful 10-Year Career in the Coffee Industry. This is about mapping having an idea of what you want the first 10 years of your career to look like, so that you can start thinking about, well, look, at some point, I do want to compete. What are the things that I need to compete? It's not going to happen for 5 years from now. But if I'm thinking about that, what do I need to compete? All right, well, I'm going to need a coach. I'm going to need access to money. I'm going to perhaps need to be working for the right employer. I'm going to need to work on my communication skills. This webinar that we're going to be running that I'm going to be leading is about that mindset. It's about how to set yourself up today to have a ridiculously successful and fulfilling career in the coffee industry, so that you're prepared for all of that stuff. This is the kind of thing that helps people be prepared. It is a competitive edge, this kind of a webinar, because it helps you prepare your mindset so that you know what's coming, so that you can dodge the balls or you can catch them.
Great. Looking forward to it.
You can go to mapperforward.org/events. Actually, when we get off the air, I'll create a discount code for people who are your audience, and we'll get them a discount code that'll get them like 30% off or something like that. So it's a big chunk. Excuse me. The idea is, and I think that the big problem is, people are unaware of the fact that they want a career in coffee until they're already in a career in coffee.
Yeah.
And then they're in a career in coffee and they're like, well, I actually went and did a science degree. I thought I was going to be a scientist, but I love this and I want to be in this industry the rest of my life. I have put zero thought into what this career looks like. I'm just going to play it by ear.
Yeah. And we hear those stories all the time.
I was that story. I have a science degree.
Me too.
And I was in the music industry and in the corporate world before that. And now I work, 15 years into like doing coffee just because I didn't want to be in the corporate world anymore. And I loved the idea of being of service to people through this amazing, I couldn't believe I got paid to do this job called coffee. I used to go home every day and say to my ex-husband, like, I can't believe you get paid to do this job. I cannot believe that this is like a job, a real job. I used to work in the corporate world and get paid a lot more than this, but this is so fun. And I think we're the luckiest people in the world. We get to make coffee and socialize with people all fucking day. And then we get the rest of the evenings to ourselves to do nothing. That's amazing. I used to live with my laptop after work in the corporate world. But the big issue here is these people find themselves in a situation where, all right, so I love doing this, but how am I going to make a career out of this that feels fulfilling and is financially successful? That's the other thing we're going to cover in this webinar. It is how to have a financially successful career in the coffee industry, doing what you love and having a vision for how you want to fill your life and how to get properly compensated for that financially. Because no one's put thought into how to map that out. We have a physical map. You get a map that you get resources with this webinar, and it's not going to be expensive. It's a 3-hour webinar. You've got a month to watch it. You get a physical map to download and take with you, and but they're useless without each other. So it's not like if you got the map, it's easy to follow. You need the workshop to work with the thing. And I think that having an understanding of all this stuff before you're going to be approaching competition, years before you approach competition, is going to be like your secret weapon when you do come to want to do these kinds of things. If you had someone that you knew had competed. So here's something that we're going to talk about in the webinar that people can, an idea that around competition. Years before you compete, you should be going to competitions if you want to compete.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
You should be going to competitions. You should be making friends with the competitors. You should be volunteering to help competitors.
Yes, you should be volunteering.
Yeah, find people who are competing and just say to them, can I clean shit for you? Can I just be there when you're practicing and I'll happily help you clean up afterwards? I'll be a volunteer for somebody who's doing it ahead of you, even if it's their first year. That's the person who's going to give you tips. That's the person who's going to be able to say, they're going to, when they come back from competition, they're going to tell you where they fucked up. They're going to tell you where they could have done better, what they learnt for next time. And you're also a support person for them without having any vested interest. It's exciting to do something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, speaking of volunteering, I highly recommend to everybody who's interested in competing to volunteer in competitions.
Have you done that yet?
Well, I've been part of it, not actually kind of volunteering
through work.
Through work, yeah. We hosted the nationals for these years, so I was involved in during the competition. Helping the SCA, and I got to see everything, how it's run and how much time and effort it takes, and it was exhausting. And those type of events wouldn't be possible without the volunteers. So yeah, I was just running around, checking the volunteers are okay. And, if they need anything, what else do they need? The stage managers and everything. So to all the people who volunteers in these events, you guys are great. And yeah, there should be more volunteers though. I think so.
Yeah. And if you need a reason to volunteer, it's make it purely selfish. I'm volunteering so that I can meet people that are going to be around when I want to compete and that I can ask for advice. And also I'm looking for an inside way to understand how the fuck it all works.
Of course. Yeah. And also, obviously, if you are part of the team who's cleaning the machines, if you're competing later, you're going to know, oh, this person didn't clean, or here's a spot or whatever they're looking for. So I think it's very important to know all sides of everything that you're planning to do. A manager knows how to train someone because they went through the training themselves.
You hope.
Or they were. I'm hoping.
I know a lot of really shitty managers.
Well, that's the ideal
situation.
World, and
right.
Yeah, the ideal situation, and it will be you're able to explain somebody how to make a cappuccino because you know how to make a cappuccino.
Right, exactly. Where did the idea of Strong Women of Coffee come from?
Well, again, I just wanted the people to know the real women in coffee. I was going through the Instagram feed one day and I saw somebody using the Women in Coffee hashtag. And I did not agree with that image. So
what was the image?
It was it's a beautiful woman, and she's wearing very little clothes, and she was on the bed, which it's fine if she feels comfortable doing that, and that's her platform, taking pictures like that and stuff like that, and that's okay if that's what she wants to do. But she used the hashtag Women in Coffee. And I thought, this is not the actual women in coffee that I know. They're all smart. They're all very professional. I'm not saying she's not professional, but, very career focused.
Or that she's not smart. You weren't saying that, right?
No, of
course.
Because
just because she's naked on a bed, we don't know that she's not smart.
Exactly.
We have to be very careful of that.
Yeah, I'm sure she's a very smart person, and that's her platform that she chose to present to the public, and that's fair enough. But I just wanted to show people who's not in the coffee industry that women in coffee are also smart, and they are more than just like a body image. So I just want to have that people relate women in coffee with a real image of,
or at least a more balanced
Yeah, at least a more balance, and that we are not like, well, maybe we are in the privacy of our own homes, like drinking coffee like this every
For anyone
morning.
who's listening and not watching, Laura just did a great pose of what I'm assuming would have been her naked, holding a cup of coffee in the
That's
privacy
me
of
being
her
sexy.
home. That's you being sexy. You nailed it.
So, I mean, yeah, you can imagine how sexy I am in my private.
We will leave that for you and your boyfriend.
Yeah.
This is one where my Arab upbringing has been very influential in me breaking my own stereotypes of what I think women in anything should or should not be.
Yeah.
There used to be a couple of women in coffee who, do you know what the Suicide Girls are?
No.
Suicide Girls is a brand of women who I believe are porn stars. I may be
Okay.
wrong there, but they dress very sexually evocatively. So not a lot of clothes. And if they're wearing clothes, they're usually little skirts with fishnets and really like hooker heels and stuff like that. Lots of tattoos. I'm a fan of tattoos. I've got tattoos. So, please nobody send me any like, what the fuck have you got against tattoos? No, I have tattoos. But what I started to notice was a few years ago, probably it would have been 6 or 7 years ago, it started to be cool for women in coffee to start copying the Suicide Girls and taking photos of themselves in similar, very sexually evocative poses. These were very professional women in coffee that were making great coffee and running really great espresso bars, but were using this platform of social media to present a very different side of themselves, to get very Insta famous. And it really challenged me. It really challenged the way that I looked at women in coffee, because it wasn't my experience of women in coffee. The women that I knew in coffee were all crazy professional and very far more professional than most of the men that I was working with, and could wipe the floor with most of the men that I worked with regards to their level of being able to execute in high volumes and things like that. And I was very confused by this idea that, oh, this is a new thing in coffee now. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if that's the platform that they choose, that's fair enough and that's good. But I don't really want people who's not in the coffee industry to relate that kind of images to the women in coffee.
Right.
We are trying to not to make women's body objects, right? Because we are not, and we are also like smart, we're professionals. Most of them run businesses and stuff like that. So I think they want to be known for their achievements and for their, the things that they've been through and everything, more than, oh, look how great my body is, or all these cool tattoos that I have. The same thing as you, I have tattoos as well. Please don't hate me.
Well, it's not that please don't hate me. It's like you don't need the backlash that you're going to get from people like,
Yeah.
what do you have against tattoos? No, we're not
Yeah.
judging anybody. We're not judging people who do have them or don't have them. It's just
And actually, yeah, and actually it's not only women, it's also men. Not as the big scale as women. I run into this account that is called Men and Coffee. So it's an Instagram account, and they only show like super models, handsome guys with a cup of coffee.
What is
I
it?
mean,
Men
where are
and
those
coffee?
men and coffee? Yeah,
I'm just
and
gonna,
there's the thing in like women and coffee, and there's like a bunch of girls in
oh,
bed or
fuck,
beautiful.
that's a verified account with 388,000 followers.
Yeah, so I know that's not the actual men in coffee. If they are, where are they? But it's also a way to not only objectify women, but they're also, it's not their actual or the real men
No,
in the coffee industry. So
no,
maybe some of
these are
them,
all
I don't know.
models. Like none of these are men. So when you look at, and this is where we have to be careful. These aren't people who are trying to say that they're in the coffee industry. These are people who are saying, I have a coffee cup with me.
Coffee. Yeah, exactly. And
I'm
they use men and
not
coffee or women
unhappy.
and
If
coffee
if there were men that looked like this, I'm going to get into
in
trouble
the
for that. Listen, men in coffee, if you look like this and you would like to start an Instagram account of all of you, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not going to object. Go take a look at the Instagram account and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, it's not terrible. And,
No, it's
for all
like
you
I'm
fuckers that are
saying.
going to turn around and saying that I'm objectifying men, I'm not. I'm just saying that if you look like that and you've got a cup of coffee, I'm going to like the photo. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead. I'm going to support your endeavor. I'm going to encourage you to live your dream to be hot and Insta famous with a cup of coffee there. Go you. That's encouragement, humans. Go do it. I'm
But
just
again,
saying.
yeah, no, and it's fine. I mean, if those were the men in the coffee industry, wow. But again, they're being
I'm
very
going to get into
careful
so
with
much
what
trouble for what I just said. It's so wonderful being your own boss.
they are being very careful. I don't think they use the hashtag men in coffee. They
Right.
use men and coffee, and they use coffee, and that doesn't mean they are the men in coffee.
Well,
But
I tell you, they're clearly not the men in coffee because what I just saw, oh dear.
so
I
that's
am going
when
to check that
my
out later.
yeah.
But in all seriousness, obviously I'm joking and I'm just fucking around. I'm not even into men like that. I am into men, but just not men that look like that. Not that there's anything wrong with people who aren't into men. I'm just saying, fuck. No, I'm just saying it's a bit of a laugh. Like that's clearly not what we're going for. Although, like, and this is my other thing, there are people in our industry that sit there and, do these crazy photo shoots with a cup of coffee. And this is these women that were doing the same thing. They have professional photographers take photos of them lying down with a cup of coffee in their crotch. And they're promoting themselves as, if you want to hire me as a coffee consultant, this is the email address. And I'm challenged there as one, a coffee professional, two, a businesswoman, and three, an intelligent woman. I feel challenged by what that says because I know she's going to get a fuck ton of business and more power to her for doing that. She's going for a competitive edge that even if I had a body like that, and I don't, but I wouldn't do that. And that challenges me. And it makes me question, she's got every right to do that.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't she? She's being a businesswoman. She's appealing to, most men's other brain.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, and you're saying she's a very smart, and she's tackling men-dominated industry
It's
like that, and
clever.
it's great, but not all of us like will feel comfortable doing that. And it's, yeah, that's where I struggle as well. But that's why also I wanted to show, like, there's somebody who, I don't know, I am like, I have a regular body, and I'm normal. I mean, I'm not saying she's not normal, but I go to my well, I
She's
have my
more
personal
eccentric
Instagram,
than
and
you
it's,
are.
yeah, thank you. I have problems trying to find the right
I know, that's fine. I mean,
English language problem.
we're not saying that she's any better or worse than you, or that you're any better or worse than her. She has a different
Yeah,
approach. And I hate to
exactly.
say this, but her approach is going to win 9 times out of 10 over the approaches women like you and I take.
Yeah, and
That's where
what
we're
does
at.
that tell you, though? Yeah, and I think women should be higher, or as a consultant or baristas or whatever, on their skills and their brains, obviously, than just, oh, she's so hot, let's put her in the bar and then we're gonna get more customers, which is what happens
Yep.
most of the time, right?
I've lived under this cloud of naivety where I'm like, but no, I'm good at what I do, and I'm smart, and like I'm bubbly, and I have a great personality, and blah, blah, blah. Like, shouldn't that all be enough? No. No. Being in the music industry taught me that. When you can be a really great singer and write great songs and have a fan base, etc., but at the end of the day, if the person who's making the decisions a lot of the time doesn't have a hard on for what you're doing, probably just not going to do anything for it. And I found that the women who figured that out always were more successful than me. And I just decided I had to choose not to be a part of that. I just had to get out of it and figure out a different path. And that's happening here too. I've chosen a different path. I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to just do me. And whoever likes it, likes it. And whoever doesn't, well, fuck you very much. There's going to be something out there that you prefer more than what I'm trying to put out there into the coffee universe. And I can't change that. Like, I'm trying to add value the best way I know how. And I'm doing it with an open heart and an open mind and an intention to want to learn, but that absolutely does not guarantee success.
Yeah,
And I promise you that a woman who's going to wear fishnets and have a professional photo taken of a cup of coffee or a Chemex between her legs when she's sitting there, she is absolutely going to have a much better shot at least getting a foot in the door.
But that's also sad, though. Like, as not for her or anything, but as a society, that we hire, or we prefer to hire this person because she is showing me her boobs, than this other person who has like all the experience as a barista or the knowledge or whatever. Oh, but this one has great boobs. So I think it's sad as a society or as an industry or whatever. Well, I'll say as a society to that we are at that point. Don't you think?
I couldn't agree more, but I think that we are less at that point today than we were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is exciting. I think that we are in a transitionary phase in our global society and our global culture. I think we're in a transitionary phase where people are at least like asking the question of, well, no, hold on, I want to support more women. Whereas before it's like, I got to hire hot women.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. We're not even close to being there yet.
Oh, no.
But
because also the support women, it's also a little bit tricky. sometimes.
Tell me more.
Like,
What do you mean
okay,
by that?
well, it's like, I don't know, this company, yes, I want to support women. And then it's like, how? Like, do
Right.
you have a woman like prepared enough to be one of your like management position? I'm not saying just hire someone because it's a woman, but I'm sure there's a woman who has the knowledge to do the job.
Right.
Sometimes I heard this many times. Oh, I will hire a woman if she comes and she knows what she's doing. And I'm like, well, have you given them the chance to show you that they know what they're doing, or just you just assume that they don't know what they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's a chicken and egg situation. We have to empower
Yeah,
more women to believe that they deserve the opportunities that are being presented in front of them. And we have to teach them how to find the opportunities. And we have to educate people against their own internal biases.
yeah,
I have internal biases that were conditioned into me. I see a woman who is wearing next to nothing in a photo, and my conditioning is to think of her like, and I hate this, but my Arab upbringing looks at that and says she's selling herself, or she's being cheap, or any of that. And my internal bias is to immediately go to that. But then my conscious self says that is something that's been conditioned into you, and that's not what's going on here. You can't judge someone because of what they're not wearing. Now my whole questioning goes to, I wonder why I wonder if that's an insecurity that causes her to think that she needs to put a coffee cup between her legs in order to get business. Or is she trying to get a competitive edge there and play to men's mammalian brains and do that? Like, I am at least challenging my own internal biases in that situation. I'm nowhere near all the way there, because you grow up around men and women who tell you any woman who's going to wear a tiny little skirt or walk around in public with next to nothing on, she's a slut, right? And that's not true. It's not true at all. It pretty much says next to nothing that you can assume about her. She may be, that's what she's comfortable wearing. She doesn't feel that there's anything weird about wearing tiny short shorts and a little tank top. I may have biases against it, but she might not. And I can't push my biases on her because of what my conditioning was all about. And those are the kinds of things where we've got to stop as a society. Even if we can't change it completely yet, we've got to at least pull ourselves up with regards to those biases. I have the same biases with men. All men are assholes. Oh, yeah. Right? That was a statement that I kept saying for the last 10 years. All men are assholes. No, not all men are assholes. The majority of men are assholes, but not all men are assholes. That's where I'm at with my challenging my own internal conditioning. It's like, no men want to help you. They're all assholes. They all compete with you. They all want to push you down and crush you. All of that has been my experience my whole life with men, both in the culture that I grew up in and in the coffee industry and in the corporate world. But that doesn't mean that all men are going to be like that to me. But I didn't know that until I started seeing examples of men that weren't like that. It's just finding the examples, Laura. Like, there's not a lot out there that I encounter that are different from that. They like to think that they are different from that.
They are. And I'm sure there are a lot of men in companies that support women and everything. But I think it's very interesting that you touched the subject of culture and biases, because I think it also, more than society, it also comes from cultures.
Yeah.
I live here in Canada, and obviously their societies compared to Mexico, where I'm from, it's more liberal and stuff like that. So it is also challenging, and I also have those biases that you have the exact same. Our culture is, you know, you live with your parents until you get married, and then you go from your parents' house
to your husband's house.
Your husband's house. And if you now, it's changing, thank God. I moved out of my house. I didn't live in my parents' house without being married. Yeah, my mom lives in Mexico. So I moved out of like my mom's house without being married. Yep. So she was like, why? Why are you
Everybody's going to talk. We're going to be the shame of the village and the city. So, oh my God, all my friends are going to hate me. I know, I did that. I moved out before I got married,
So, and it's changing, and, you know, younger generations are doing it like more and more. But still there's a lot of biases, like, oh, you know, we have a lot of like microaggressions.
Explain this idea of microaggressions. I'm very confused by this. I mean, I'm confused. It's a new term. It's only been around a couple of years. So what do you mean by microaggressions?
You know, it's like, for example, obviously I'm talking about my culture, saying the government, no, that's so bad. No, I'm not going to talk about that.
Careful, talk about the government on here. No, you don't want to do that.
No, I don't know, saying, oh, you know, your boyfriend, oh, I love that skirt on you, but you cannot wear it without me if you're not with me.
So that's being controlling. So is being controlling a microaggression?
Yes, because they're trying to kind of, you know, not making it about sexism, but it is, because you should be able to, as a woman, have the right to go and wear whatever she wants when she's not with him. I mean, I might not have the microaggression term like completely to the point right now.
To me, that's not a microaggression. That's fucking aggression. He thinks he's asserting control over. I mean, and look, these are terms I didn't grow up with. These are terms that are only very new.
Yeah, I mean, and again, for me, it's a microaggression because in my culture, that's very normal.
Right.
So that's why I'm talking in my perspective. That's something that is normal in my culture, which obviously we are not normalizing it like nowadays that much, but it's something that still happens. And then the woman, there's also like, oh, but you cannot go out with your friends without me.
So that's considered a microaggression.
It is for me. And I think, again, because I see it's more normal in my culture. So what for you might be not, because it's not normal. And obviously it's not normal, but in my culture it's so normal, and it's so normalized on the everyday. And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Or who decides if something's a microaggression or not? Is it the person that's on the receiving end of said microaggression, or?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Is there a person who decides who I'm?
Like, is there a list?
We should figure it out.
I'm fascinated by a lot of these new terms that are coming out because, I want to understand. I feel that culture is going at a very different rate at what society is. You know, for example, with the gender pronouns, right? There is a group of people who absolutely expect and demand that everyone understands exactly what's going on with gender pronouns. Their culture is moving at a very fast rate, right? But in society, there are a lot of people who are not exposed to understanding the importance of addressing people with their chosen gender pronouns. And if we don't, as a culture, give society the time to catch up and understand through education how these things affect the people that they affect, we're actually doing everybody a disservice. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I also think I completely agree with like giving society a little bit of room to kind of learn and accept. And I mean, this is going to be very personal, and I hope I don't get into trouble. I'm speaking like for me, and in my case, for myself. And because English is not my second language.
Okay.
So when I run into people who don't identify as a she or he or like that, for me, being English not my first language, I need to think my brain is doing some extra work trying to find the right words in English because my brain is thinking in Spanish. So I need to, try to find the right words in English. But then difficult because now it gives me the anxiety. Oh my God, I'm going to use he or I'm going to use she, and if I use he or she, this person is going to get offended. Mm-hmm. So it's an extra load in my brain. That if I made a mistake, is not on purpose.
Right.
It's just because, in my brain, I learned English saying he or she, they, or whatever. So I think sometimes people need to be a little bit more understanding that it's not only because people don't want to use or people don't accept to use those terms or not calling he or she. It's more of you don't know that person and you don't know what that person's brain is like struggling with. So I do think like as a society, we need to give a little bit more room to accept and kind of, get used to the idea.
Yes. And English is my first language. I speak Arabic as well, but I think in English and English is what I learned. And so when gender pronouns are presented to me that, no, you're not allowed to call me he or she. First of all, I'm allowed to do whatever the fuck I want. I don't care who you are. That's the power of fuck you has taught me that. And you're never going to get anywhere by telling people they have to do something, right? Men don't have to treat women as equals. Women don't have to treat men as equals, but we definitely are all better off if we do. I don't have to call you by any fucking gender pronoun. But I tell you what, my experience and your experience is going to be much better if you can teach me what you need and you can help me get there because I'm confused by the pronoun they. They sounds like a plural to me and my little brain can't understand that. And so instead of getting all pissy about the fact that I'm challenged by calling you, who looks like a woman to me, they, and I find that challenging, you're going to have to be okay with that. I mean, you clearly don't have to be okay with that, but if you want to achieve your desired outcome, we're all going to get there a lot better if you give people some fucking room. And I believe this is the same thing with the gender thing. I've had to learn that if I can take the time to have conversations with men, even if they're assholes, if I can take the time to have conversations with them that help them come round to some of the asinine fucking behavior that they've been doing, a lot of them, it turns out, just are completely unaware of how ridiculous their behavior is. A lot of them really are unaware of it. And then when you call them up on it and you're like, bro, let's have a chat. I've used this example on the podcast before. There was one barista, well, in this one particular workplace, the male baristas didn't think it was inappropriate to touch this woman's boobs because the men all touched each other's boobs. They didn't think there was anything weird about it by touching this woman who started working with them as a barista. They all thought it was like, this is a way of equality. You'll want equality. Why are you touching each other's boobs in the first place? That's inappropriate behavior in a professional workplace. It wasn't until I sat this guy down and spoke to him about it and laid it out to him and said, so listen, have you thought about asking even the guys if they're okay with this? Never crossed his mind. Never even considered that the men might feel as uncomfortable about this as she did. And it was like, for me, it was a big learning. Like, I'm sitting here having this conversation with this guy saying, how much of a fucking moron can you be thinking it's okay to touch another woman's boobs? And he's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. What do you mean you didn't think about it that way? And for me, it was like, oh, hold on, I've got this whole gender thing wrong. I'm assuming that men are being assholes because they're trying to be assholes, not realizing that a lot of them are completely oblivious to their behavior and the way that they're approaching this. And I think that it's the same kind of situation. We've got to give society time. Well, we've got to give the culture time to catch up to society. I used that analogy wrong. It needs to be, society is moving in one direction and we've got to give culture the opportunity to catch up so that it becomes the norm. And yes, there's a group of us women that are driving this, saying, we're not going to put up with this shit any longer. You know, I'm an intelligent, hardworking woman. And I don't want to be recognized for the fact that I've got a big set of boobs and a big ass. That's not something that I want you to focus on with me. I want you to focus on what I'm achieving. I have 2 businesses. I've got a podcast that's doing great. I have fucking great conversations, and I want that to be front and center of the conversation. As much as I want that, Laura, it's going to take time for the community to catch up.
Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, you know that, right? And in the perfect world, everybody will be in that place already, but it's not. And I think we all need to let society to catch up in what we're doing. And I also think it's both ways with guys too. I mean, you know, we also have, and again, I'm talking about my culture, that, you know, men need to be athletic and strong and know about mechanics. And if something is broken, they're going to fix it. And that's not the case, you know.
I know many men that have no idea how to fix an espresso machine.
Exactly. And if there's something like, you know, I don't know, there's a bug or like something in the house. Oh, no, I don't want to kill it because I'm scared I'm the woman. And then the guy is like, you go kill it. And the guy is like, well, I'm scared of it too.
Yes.
What tells you I'm not scared of it, right? But because he's the guy, he's the man. So I'm assuming he's not scared of it. So I think we as a society also have lots of bias. And
have you seen the documentary The Red Pill?
No.
So this is a documentary about men's rights.
Oh.
And I remember coming across it thinking, what the fuck are they talking about, before I'd watched it? And the documentary is made by a woman, and she was very confused by what the fuck men have to assert their rights over. Don't they have all the rights that they want? And the way I approach these kinds of things is like my brain, I'm a trained scientist. So I'm trained to look at what are all the variables. You know, if I want to, my quest is how do I find out what's actually going on and ignore my confirmation biases of this. And so over the years, I've worked very hard to identify confirmation bias within myself and let go of it. And so I wanted to approach this idea of, you know, gender the same way. Believe it or not, I was raised to be sexist against women.
Yeah.
So our cultures, both the Mexican and the Arab cultures, teach us to believe that women are less than men.
Yeah, of course. And the house, it starts in the house. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, moms. Well, I'm not sorry, but it's the truth. If you have a Mexican household where there's a girl and a boy, the boy can just like play, and then the girl needs to help the mom clean up the house.
My whole fucking Saturdays were sucked up with housework through my whole youth. That's it. My brothers got to go play, and my twin sister and I spent from morning until the late afternoon cleaning every Saturday.
And as you grow up, it just continues, because then you get to teenage years and you want to go out with your friends and they tell you you have to be here by 8.
Yeah.
And then your brother goes out.
Can't do that. You can't be with him.
Yeah.
If I see you talking with a boy, you're going to be in trouble. All of it, right?
Yeah. And while your brother goes out, and it's like, oh yeah, don't worry. If you're not coming like home for the night, just let us call and tell us where you're staying with. Like, what? So you're okay with him not coming to the house to sleep, but not with me?
But I got to be home by 10 o'clock.
Exactly. And so it's all those like cultural biases in society, right?
And we're conditioned to believe that there is a difference between men and women. And even as women, it's reinforced to us. And I noticed that as I got married, I was reinforcing these differences. And I'll never forget when the moment it all switched for me was when I realized that, you know, my marriage wasn't going to last. And I was married to the best guy and the only guy I'll ever marry, right? I just got to a point in my life where I thought that I no longer believe in marriage. I don't believe in this idea of a contractual agreement where a man gets to, you know, pretty much own a woman. That's where this idea of marriage was born, right? And he was for a WOG. A WOG is someone who, in Australia, it's an Australian term. It's somebody who is either from the Middle East or from Europe or, you know, South America. Like, we're all WOGs, right? We're ethnics. And for a WOG, he was pretty open-minded, but he did turn around and say something to me that was the change. All my friends used to say to me, "You're so lucky, Lee. Nick lets you do whatever you want."
Like, what?
Well, no, I used to agree with them. I'm so lucky. Nick lets me do whatever I want. And it wasn't until I realized that I shouldn't be married. And he and I had spoken about it. And, you know, one day in passing, he said to me, "I don't know what your problem is. Like, I really let you do whatever you want." And just out of nowhere, it came out of my mouth. And I said to him, "Yeah, but the problem is that you think you've got the right to let me or not let me." And that was huge for me. That was the beginning of me breaking my own conditioning of the fact that I'm less equal to him because I'm a woman. And he just kind of looked at me like, and he said, "Yeah, but that's just how we are, Lee." And I'm like, "You're right. That is how we are, but I don't want to be that way anymore. I don't want anyone to think that they can or can't let me do anything. I have no idea how I'm going to live like that. Like, I have to reprogram my whole brain." But we it was a real problem for my whole family and everyone that I knew, this new way of my thinking. So much so that my friends' husbands stopped letting some of my friends hang out with me because I was perhaps going to challenge the way that they looked at things. And I understand that. You know, those couples have to get to wherever they need to get to, and they've got their own structures. But we as a community, we as a society, we as individuals, we as an industry have a journey to get to wherever it is we want to get to, right? And I'm assuming that the destination is absolute equality, where we no longer talk about people based on their genders. We look at a person's strength based on the person's strength rather than whether they've got what genitals they have. And there is hope. Like Tim Windlebow just last week was saying on the podcast, he said, I don't understand why I should be making choices about employees based on their genitals. I just care if they can do the job. When you hear somebody like that, who is a leader in our industry, who is somebody who a lot of men take example from, coming up publicly and saying something like that, I absolutely have hope for our industry. I have hope that men are going to hear that. But again, it's not just the men. It's women like me. It's women like you who have been raised to believe that we're less because of our genitals. We have to break our own stereotypes before we can even think about stepping into being a strong woman in coffee. Like, it's a vision quest, right? Like,
Yeah.
And that's the thing I loved about the conversation that you and I had about what you're doing. You're like, I don't have any of this figured out.
No, yeah, and that's the truth. I don't, I mean, I just started and it just like kind of got noticed. But again, I mean, I don't know where I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. So I don't know.
But you know, I think you know the important thing for the platform right now is like, your intention is that you want to show that there is this other side of women in coffee. There's not just the Chemex between your legs type of women in coffee. Not that there's anything wrong with the Chemex between your legs type of woman in coffee. But there also is this other side of women in coffee who want to be taken as highly professional, non-sexualized or non-overly sexualized women who just want to get about the business of being professionals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, again, I mean, I think the majority of us in the coffee industry are not the type of put the Chemex between our legs.
He's
in like for the public, maybe in private. I don't know.
You go, girl. I'm a libertarian.
That's how I brew my coffee every day. So.
That could get a little hot, and like I hope you've got protective heat protection going on there. But you know, if you want to Instagram live that shit, I'm sure that will go very public very quickly. You know, when we had psychologist and my best friend Jamie on the podcast, he's known me since I was 10. And contrary to what everybody seems to think, I don't actually have lips that are this red. This is lipstick. And he made the point of like, well, why do you, and he said it on this podcast. He's like, so if we're talking about this whole gender and sexualization thing, why do you wear red lipstick if it's not something that you think that you do? Is it because you're trying to
look pretty?
Well, if I'm honest about it, the reason I started wearing a lipstick is because it was a part of the uniform at the cafe that I was working at once. And
wear red lipstick? That was part of the uniform? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but only for the women. And I've only ever worked for 2 women in coffee. And this cafe was run by a woman and a man. And she was very flamboyant, and he was too. He was gay. And she just had this amazing kind of way about her. And she wore this beautiful red, vibrant lipstick every day. And it became a thing. All the women that worked there had to wear the same kind of red, vibrant lipstick. And I'd never worn red lipstick before. And being an Arab woman, to wear
like
red lipstick, right? And I felt very uncomfortable. I had to start by putting a dark brown lip liner underneath it and work my way up to just the red. But I'll tell you something. When I wore red lipstick, people related to me in a different way. It wasn't even that I was sexualized in a certain way. When I wore red lipstick, people seemed to be kinder to me. It was very strange. It was, I noticed that people just were gentler with me. And I don't know whether they thought that I was more approachable when I had it on, or that they thought I was, the best way to put it is, people tend to think I'm super intimidating, right? When I've got red lipstick on, people think I'm less intimidating. I don't know why.
Interesting.
I like the way red lipstick looks on me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for me, it feels like a tool. You know, it influences the way that people respond to me. I think that's the same reason a woman puts a Chemex between her legs. It influences the way that people look at you. Does that mean I'm sexualizing myself? Well, hey, I know that when men see red lipstick on me, they just look at my lips constantly. Not all men, a lot of men. A lot of men will turn around and say, fuck, that red lipstick looks hot on you. Okay, I can't control that. But I also tend to find that it's a mechanism to disarm men. Instead of them being aggressive towards me because they think I'm intimidating, they're kind of a little less assholes towards me. I'm going to use that superpower. It works for me.
Interesting. I actually only wear red lipstick. I'm not wearing today, but all like, I can show you all my lipsticks. They're all like red, dark red. But I don't know. I guess I've never paid attention to that. I like to wear it because I like how they look at me. And, you know, with my skin color, everything, I'm like, oh, I look so pretty. But I've never like tried to pay attention to that kind of behavior. I'll try to do.
Yeah, pay attention to see what happens.
And I'll let you know.
Please do. Because it's one of those things of, like, I'm thinking all the time. I'm a deep thinker, and I'm a big observer of the way that different things that I'll do will shift the way that people respond to me. I've been fascinated by it since I was a little child. You know, I would talk a certain way or respond a certain way or shift behavior to see how you can affect a group of people. It was just, human behavior, something that's always been very fascinating to me. And there are some things that you do that have a reaction across pretty much the board. Getting my neck tattoos, same thing. If I want to have a certain response from a certain crowd, I'll just wear my hair up. And they're hidden. You couldn't see them if my hair's down. You can't see any of my tattoos if I've got long sleeve and my hair up. But the second I put my hair up, people respond to me in a very different way because I have neck tattoos. And it goes the whole way around my neck. It's not at the front. And people will be like, wow, she's really cool. She's like, I'm like, fuck, this is really interesting. I didn't get my tattoos for somebody else, but it definitely does affect the way that people respond to you. And I never knew growing up that I could use that to influence the way that people around me responded to me. You know, it's important. It's, again, the power of fuck you. I have the right to step into this. But until you have the courage to step into wearing red lipstick, it's a brave fucking statement. I feel naked without my red lipstick on now. And people respond to me differently without my red lipstick. So when I don't want to be noticed, I wear my hair down and don't wear red lipstick.
They ask you like, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? Are you sick?
People tend to not recognize me. When I was working at my last cafe I worked in Australia, I remember going in on my day off and I didn't have any lipstick on. And my hair was down and she didn't even recognize me. The girl who was on the POS didn't even realize it was me.
What?
Yeah, that's apparently how different I look. Like, I can't see it, but other people are like, oh, fuck, I didn't recognize you without your lipstick on. Because I was known as the barista with the tattoos and the red lipstick.
Oh.
So if I'm wearing my hair down and I haven't got my red lipstick on, I'm like, for fuck's sake, you work with me. How can you not recognize me? Like,
that's so interesting. Oh.
So I think as women as well, we've got to step into that. And we've got to give society some time to catch up to this new age of, like, women are here and we are not going away. We are starting to recognize that we are equal despite what we've been taught. We've got to learn some shit. I love that you want to teach women about espresso machines and how to fix them and do all that kind of stuff. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I think, again, what I found, it was that I just did 2 workshops and both of them were like completely, sold out.
Wow.
And it was like, well, we want to learn, but, it's never like an environment that it's friendly and we are comfortable making questions. And it's the thing that they think if they go to these workshops where are only male, they don't feel comfortable asking questions.
I feel
because they're gonna
intimidated
think-
in that.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, if I ask what steam one works or like, whatever part there's in the coffee machine, they're gonna think I'm stupid, that I don't know, and
That's
that what
me.
am I doing here, right? So
Yeah.
that's why this workshop was very like friendly. It was the workshop was taught by a woman, and everybody was like, it was just like a simple, like the water flow in the coffee machine. So when it goes there, the boiler, the water filtration, all the system until it comes down onto your port filter. And so it
And
was
who was allowed to attend? Just women? Just men?
this one. It was just directed to women.
That's awesome.
I wanted to do. I mean, also it was for any other minority who wanted to attend, but it was only directed to females who wanted to learn about how the coffee machine works, because you're a barista, you work with a machine every day, and not knowing how the water flow goes.
Well, because most owners don't know how to explain that shit to their employees. And so who are you going to learn from if it's not going to be your boss? And they just say, just fucking make coffee. That's it. I just need you to make coffee, right?
Yeah, and if the machine breaks down, you call the technician. Obviously, the technician goes there to work. He's not going to have time to teach you or explain you what he's doing or whatever, right? Because the technician needs to get the job done as soon as possible so you can keep working. So that's why I was like, yeah, let's do this, have people feel comfortable asking questions where they don't feel like, oh, intimidating and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'm very excited about what the future of what you're doing is going to hold, because you don't have any grand pie in the sky kind of, this is everything that I want to achieve. I think you're going gently with this, but you're going about it the right way. And I'm very excited for what you're going to achieve with Strong Women of Coffee. And as a strong woman in coffee yourself, I salute you.
Thanks.
From one strong woman in coffee to another strong woman in coffee. And if I can ever be of any help with any of the events that you've got going on and helping promote them or anything, just let me know.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I mean, I always tell, like, the women that I know, if you think of a workshop, and everybody listening, if you guys think of a workshop and would like, ESL
Would like you to run it.
problem, yeah, and or help you to it, just let me know, and I will be happy to promote it and do the poster and everything, and we can work together. If you want to give a talk, whatever, I can set it up, and we can have a group of women, and you can tell us and about the power of giving a fuck. I think that's amazing.
I think that we should think about doing something like that. I can come to Canada, and maybe we can see if we can organize a workshop and make it happen.
That will be awesome. And I think it's needed. I think we all need it. And
it's amazing what something that sounds so simple, the power of fuck you is like, I never realized how powerful that would be when I finally came into it. And it was 11 years ago, actually, that when my ex-husband and I were consciously uncoupling, we went to a counselor to help us uncouple our marriage. And she said to me, she went the last 15 minutes of the session for just her and I, and she said, listen, at some point you're going to discover the power of fuck you. And when you finally get there, I want you to call me. I don't care where you are in the world. You're going to do big things in this world. But you're going to supercharge that once you find the power of fuck you. And I'm like, oh, but I'm already there. Don't you think? Like, I'm leaving my marriage. I'm already there. It's 11 years later and I am just discovering. And I've worked intensely on myself for that whole time, intensely. And I am just now really discovering what the power of fuck you is. And it's supercharged everything. And I want to talk to more women about it.
Yeah,
I really
definitely.
do.
Yeah.
So let's organize something and let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. I will be so excited about it. And I'm still working on it as well. It never stops. And I try to do a little things like not saying sorry as much, because you're actually not sorry. And just try to, instead of say, oh, I'm sorry, when you're getting there, it's like, excuse me, you need to like not say sorry that you're there or that you want to go through.
Right.
And that's what we all do.
It's breaking the conditioning. It's realizing you may be in a relationship with someone. You may have to be respectful of each other's time and be respectful of where each other are and check in with people. But by no fucking standard will anybody ever let me or not let me do something ever fucking again in my life.
Why do you think I left? I'm sorry. I love Mexico. That's my country and everything. But that's why it was so difficult for me, because like the society is so like, conservative. And it was like, if you have a couple, you're in a couple, and you go to your friend's birthday party and your boyfriend, husband partner or whatever doesn't want to go with you, instead of you saying like, okay, well, just stay here and I'll go by myself. If you show up by yourself, they start asking you, well, what happened? Are you guys okay? Did you guys fight? Why are you not together? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
No,
like,
he just didn't want to come, and that's okay.
exactly. So, and the same thing when I was like, saying goodbye, people, yeah, I'm going to Canada, whatever. Like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 people, like obviously a little bit older, they were like, good for you. You'll see you're going to find somebody there. I'm so happy you're going. I'm like, that's not where I'm going. Like, I'm not going just because I want to find
There's
someone.
not enough options here in Mexico. There's not enough men for
Yeah.
me to choose from in Mexico. I'm going to go find myself a Mexican man in Canada.
Oh, no.
It's all right now. I think society is learning a new way in how to be a society. And even cultures like ours that were very stuck in their ways, thanks to the internet and social media, are all starting to transition as well. And that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I'm very happy with the guy that I am now. He
Excellent.
understands.
Excellent. Excellent. So, listen, if people want to find out about Strong Women in Coffee and what you guys have got coming up and what you're doing, how can they find you?
Mainly Instagram. I post everything on Instagram. And they can also go to my website, strongwomenofcoffee.com. It's very simple, the website. I'm not like technology and me.
We
We
start
just
somewhere.
don't get together. Yeah.
We start somewhere and grow it from there.
So it's very simple. But anyway, you can also email me at strongwomenofcoffee@gmail.com. And I'm always so happy to hear from people who have feedback, good and bad. I receive both all the time. But yeah, if anybody wants to contact me, you can direct me,
Perfect.
message me on Instagram or email, whatever.
Awesome. Good luck with everything, lady. I will absolutely be cheering for you and the success of the brand as it develops. And I hope that we can work together with this. It sounds like it could be something that'd be really fun.
Yeah, for sure. I can wait. We should definitely talk for something in the future.
100%. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, love.
Bye.